From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. I want to go back, way back, to this past weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, March 6th, 7th, 8th was just packed. If you were a normal person and you spent the weekend running errands, maybe bowling a frame or two, maybe seeing a movie, and not obsessed with the news, then, there's so much. Holy hell. Iran has named Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the assassinated Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, as its new supreme leader. So we'll just call the new guy W for short, I guess. We'll see how long he lasts. Israel has vowed to hunt down and kill whoever was named supreme leader. So the elder was around for 37 years. Let's see if this guy lasts 37 days. There was what they call the dignified transfer ceremony, where slain U.S. soldiers are returned to the U.S. And the Orange Menace, who reaches new lows every day, wore a goddamn hat as the flag-draped coffins were carried in front of him. And it's bad enough that he didn't take off his hat, but to add to the bottomless pit of his narcissism, of his disrespect, of his complete and utter failure as a human being, he was wearing one of his merch hats. Yeah, they sell for $55 on his website. Flag-draped coffins. Leaves his hat on. Jesus, Mother Mary and Joseph, this guy. Now, I'm as anti-war as you can get. I don't fetishize the military. I talk about that all the time. But damn it, if you risk your life and if you lose your life, you're going to get nothing but respect from me. Nothing. State-sponsored media, also known as Fox News, got caught red-handed airing old footage of the Orange Menace at a previous ceremony without the hat. So they got caught doing that. Another boat illegally struck in international waters by the United States military, killing another 6 men. So those war crimes continue. Total of 156 murdered in cold blood. The Orange Menace, Pete Hegseth, others will have their day in court someday. I guarantee it. We learned that Russia, and according to some reports, China as well, providing intelligence to Iran. This is rapidly becoming a world war, if you can't already describe it as such. I think you can make a pretty good argument to describe this as a world war. So on the news that Russia was providing intelligence to Iran, the Orange Menace announced the lifting of sanctions against Russian oil. Same day. I don't know, you tell me. What is this? Gas prices have spiked. It's going to cost you at least an extra $10, $15 to fill up your tank. Just in the last week or so, those prices up. Who knows where that'll stop? 92,000 jobs lost in February. Gee, I guess it's lucky it's the shortest month of the year. Might have been 100,000. Probably will be 100,000 when they revise the numbers. Because, they always come back a couple months later and revise the numbers. And they're always worse. As they were this time for December and January. Net job losses every month, each month, since April, I think I heard. Yeah, heck of a job. Heck of a job. It was quite a weekend. Yeah, all this news just from the past weekend. And there's so much more. New evidence of the Epstein murder. Yes, he was murdered. Anybody who's buying the suicide story at this point, come on. Speaking of Epstein, interesting little nugget here. Google searches about the Epstein files dropped by 95% after the bombing of Iran started. So a little wag the dog action here. I guess that's working pretty well. 95% fewer Google searches on the Epstein files. Sheldon Whitehouse over the weekend, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, went to the floor of the Senate, and you got to check this out on YouTube. For 45 minutes, this very dense presentation about all the connections between the Orange Menace, Russia, and Jeffrey Epstein. You got to see this. If you're not aware of the work of Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, Democratic senator from Rhode Island, You need to follow this guy. Follow him on social media. Just look for his name. He's getting it done. If you see his name on a story, you can't go wrong. Read that story. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be valuable. Sheldon Whitehouse knows how to get it done. So, yeah, check that out. This regime, man, perfect storm. It's just a perfect storm of incompetence, of greed, of hate, bigotry, misogyny, Islamophobia, all of it. And, of course, violence. Good Lord. This regime is a perfect storm. Another video I came across over the weekend. James Carville, longtime Democratic political strategist, advisor to the Clinton administration. I've never had a whole lot of affection for James Carville. I think he gets as much wrong as he gets right. I think he's kind of a crank. I'm not his biggest fan. But he made a really important point over the weekend that I agreed with. And the way he made it was kind of extraordinary. He ranted, man. If you can call anything a rant, this was a rant. And it was about so-called Trump derangement syndrome. He said, yeah, I've got Trump derangement syndrome, and I want it. I want it to get worse. He was making the point that we all need to be, it was basically a mad as hell, I'm not going to take this anymore kind of a speech or rant on his little podcast or whatever he does. And just tearing into those who want to always be fair and look at both sides and reach across the aisle. The exact same thing you and I have been talking about for years. We never should have treated him like a normal candidate. We should never treat him as a normal president. This whole administration is not normal. None of this is normal. And we really ought to be responding in kind. We have to raise bloody hell. You know, the aforementioned Sheldon Whitehouse used a term in his presentation that really caught my ear. Normalcy bias. It's a cognitive bias causing people to underestimate the likelihood and impact of disasters, falsely believing that life will continue as normal despite clear warning signs. It leads to delayed evacuations, poor risk perception, and inaction during crisis. Approximately 70 to 80% of people may exhibit this behavior. Yeah, normalcy bias. When it comes down to doing the work of being an informed citizen and then an active, engaged citizen, we can't just be fooling ourselves in service of our own comfort. So good for you, James Carville, someone I usually criticize. You made an excellent point. We're not meeting the moment because this administration is just off the rails. And our response, notwithstanding all the great protests that are happening, nothing but love and praise for all the folks out on the streets. But generally speaking, especially the institutions, media, big business, major parties, the response to this administration has been woeful. We got to take off the gloves because this administration is sinister. They're vicious, they're corrupt, they're depraved. I mean, look at this crew. From the Orange Menace on down. J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth, RFK, Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, Pam Bondi. These are not adult men and women. They're frat boys and mean girls. This is out of control adolescent rage. And now we've got this perfect storm of corruption and greed and racism and white supremacy. This hatred of Muslims, a 21st century crusades for Christian nationalism, this megalomania, this madness. And the latest iteration, the worst of all, this godforsaken war in Iran, where the Orange Menace actually believes he has 84% approval. Because he lives in a bubble. Because everyone around him just tells him what he wants to hear. They show him a poll. I'm guessing this is how he got the number. Of course, he's perfectly capable of just making things up on the spot, out of nowhere. But I'm sure there's a poll out there somewhere that says he's got 84% approval from certain voters, from his base, from hardcore MAGA. But everything about this thing is just a disaster. Just one bad choice after another. Dozens of officers in the chain of command calling it a holy war. We got two guys who brought explosives to a protest in New York City on behalf of, or at least inspired by, the Islamic State. So we're back to those days. Remember, that was the big word 10, 15, 20 years ago. Always inspiration. Oh, inspired by ISIS. inspired by Al-Qaeda. Now, these two guys inspired to bring and to hurl explosives. They didn't explode, thank goodness. According to the report, they wanted to accomplish something akin to the bombing of the Boston Marathon in 2013, but even bigger, as one of the guys was quoted. Neo-imperialism is thriving as a global idea once again. Iran being accused of jihad and regional domination. Well, what better describes this administration, if not jihad and regional domination? Ultra-conservative, anti-intellectual, anti-woman, anti-LGBTQ. Employ violence and terror as tools. Am I talking about the Islamic State? Am I talking about Iran? Or am I talking about the Oval Office? Tell me, where's the difference? Look at Gaza, reduced to rubble. And this is the new model. Netanyahu is openly talking about doing the same thing to Iran. And they're always talking about who's next. They're salivating over Cuba. They're bragging about what they did in Venezuela, creating basically a puppet regime. At the point of a gun, do what we say. And if you don't, then you're reduced to rubble. There's no in between. The U.S. regime is now arming Iranian militias. Good God. Where did Al-Qaeda come from? Where did ISIS come from? That's their origin story. U.S.-backed armed militias. With U.S. arms, no less. The very origin story of Al-Qaeda. But they are determined to reshape the world into one where might makes right. Screw international law. Screw rules of engagement. Pete Hegseth says it right out loud, unapologetically. Hell, Channing and Rumsfeld were quaint by comparison. They just wanted to control the oil. This bunch wants the oil plus a one-party right-wing rule throughout the Middle East, with Israel at its head, and across the Western Hemisphere, with the United States calling the shots. Its fascist government in partnership with the oligarchs, at the indisputable helm, all laid out very neatly. First meeting of the so-called Shield of Americas. South and Central American leaders invited, only right-wingers, of course. Reminiscent of the Board of Peace, of the Abraham Accords. Let's just all get together. Let's be clear who's the boss, who holds the guns, who holds the money. We're going to plunder resources, oil, rare earths. We're going to make corrupt deals. You've all seen gangster movies, right? When all the families get together to get their marching orders, make sure everybody knows who's boss. That's the Board of Peace. That's the Shield of the Americas. It's a right-wing sandbox for our toddler-in-chief. And apparently the new home for Kristi Noem, fired as Department of Homeland Security Secretary. In order to save face, the orange meat puppet named her special envoy to the Shield of the Americas. Just put her someplace where she can't do any harm, and where there's only one boss. He likes her. He thinks she's hot. He likes having her around. He likes that Mar-a-Lago face. And in a recurring theme, how low can they go? They can always go lower. Named to be the new Secretary of DHS, Markwayne Mullin. If the Senate actually confirms this guy, another new low. Department of Homeland Security. This guy's got zero military service, zero intelligence background, zero experience in anything immigration related, no experience in border security, counterterrorism, emergency management, cybersecurity, disaster response. None. No background in any of this. He's a plumber. Markwayne Buttcrack Mullin is a damn plumber. And an amateur MMA fighter who likes to talk tough. Remember, he was the guy who said, "Stand your butt up," in a Senate hearing. He was ready to throw down with the witness until Bernie Sanders had to yell at him like he's a child and remind him that he was a U.S. Senator. That's Markwayne Mullin. The only U.S. Senator without even a bachelor's degree. No degree of any kind, let alone a law degree, or a law enforcement degree, or any of the other things we just mentioned. Yeah, the whole operation is just out of control, with very little to no pushback from anyone in the establishment, outright capitulation from much of the establishment, and virtually no opposition party. The Democrats, please. 4 of them just voted for this war that violates international law and our own Constitution. 100 different ways. Jot these down and make sure they know that you know. Henry Cuellar of Texas, Greg Landsman of Ohio, Jared Golden of Maine, Juan Vargas of California. Without their votes, joining nearly all House Republicans, the resolution would have passed to limit the Orange Menace's ability to take unchecked military action against Iran. A similar measure failed earlier in the Senate, with guess who? John Fetterman, the only so-called Democrat to join the Republicans. People of Pennsylvania, please do what you need to do to get rid of John Fetterman. And now we're in election season. Primaries have already begun. The general election for the midterm is only a few months away. If you want to call yourself an opposition party, candidates must be anti-war, no question about it. No hedging your bets. No, well, the Iran regime really is very bad. And no, be clear. If you want to be an opposition party in today's America, you absolutely must get over this obsession with Israel. It's a rogue, terrorist, expansionist state conducting a genocide. You have to say that unequivocally, out loud. You got to stay on the Epstein files. Hell, another story that got Wag the Dogged off of the front page was the release of those FBI 302 files alleging the most heinous crimes by the Orange Menace on a 14-year-old girl. Her testimony. It barely made the news. If you're hearing about this for the first time, please don't let this be the last you hear or read about this. If you want to be an opposition party candidate, you got to be pro-Ukraine. You got to be pro-democracy. You have to be anti-ICE. You have to be clear. You have to be pro-accountability. The Orange Menace and the entire cabinet need to be impeached. If I've said this once, I've said it 1,000 times. Forget politics. Good policy is good politics. And you can't just say it, you got to believe it. Authenticity is everything. You got to say what you believe, and you got to believe what you say. If you're not anti-ICE, if you're not pro-Ukraine, if you're not anti-Israel, if you're not anti-Iran war, then find another job or run as a Republican. In one of the first major races of this primary season, James Tallarico of Texas defeated Jasmine Crockett. Now, I'm not going to deify Jasmine Crockett. She has her own problems. But between the two, there's no comparison on which one is the fighter, which one is the progressive. I mean, James Tallarico, you know damn well that the minute that race was called, oh, he's going to be so responsible, so bipartisan, willing to reach across the aisle. I'm so sick of it, and you know damn well that James Tallarico is going to go right to the center. Oh, but he's in Texas. He has to. I'm so tired of playing politics. So tired of it. Authenticity is good politics. A strong point of view, a strong stand, an unapologetic stand. Believe what you say what you believe. That's good politics. And to be honest, as a person of the left, I'd rather lose races my way than win them your way. Because all your way does is move the center further to the right. Move the Overton window. Year after year, election cycle after election cycle. It's how we got the Orange Menace in the first place. It's how we drifted into fascism. Because there was no opposition party offering any kind of a vision for the people. Tired of it. An important thing to remember in our fight here against fascism in the United States is that we have a variety of weapons and platforms from which to fight. I mean, yes, it would be great if congressional Democrats would find a spine, would throw off their corporate donor overlords. It would be great if a handful of Republicans would find their soul. But we can't be frozen in our tracks waiting for that. There are individual actions you and I have talked at length about, protesting, direct action, sabotage, etc. And there's government at the local and state level that we have to keep pressuring. The idea of soft secession, I think you and I have talked about this, I don't recall. Also called non-cooperative federalism. It's a strategy where at the state level, U.S. states are able to nonviolently resist federal authority, build parallel structures of government, refuse to comply with certain federal laws or policies, because everything's coming straight from Stephen Miller's office or Russell Vogt's office, filtered through the Oval Office. But states can form regional alliances, and we're already seeing some of this. They can use their economic power. I mean, the term soft secession, I guess, sounds pretty extreme. It's not actually seceding from the nation. It's just a tactic to gain some autonomy from the Oval Office, to protect Americans, to protect values that are being just decimated by the regime. The oversteps, the unlawful presidential orders. Now, obviously, we're talking here about blue states, where Democrats hold the governor's office and at least one of the legislative bodies. But I suppose there could be individual issues that even maybe some red states might be persuaded. In any case, check and see what your state is up to. As I say, this is starting to happen, but it's something you can encourage. States can simply refuse to enforce certain federal mandates, refuse to cooperate with federal agencies. We've talked at length about sanctuary status. States are building alliances. One example, the West Coast Health Alliance, to try to uphold public health standards, vaccine distribution, that sort of thing. And then the big one, of course, this is the one that makes headlines. Some states are donor states, meaning they contribute more back to the federal government in taxes than they receive in benefits. And that's almost entirely, I'd have to look at the numbers, that's almost entirely blue states. All the donor states are blue. All the states that take in more than they give to the federal government are red. That's economic leverage. Well, is that legal? Well, of course, there are going to be fights about this. There's fights about everything in court. Push the limit. Find out how far you can go. There's still such a thing as states' rights, which used to be used by conservatives, especially the bigots of the civil rights era, when they refused to comply with federal mandates regarding desegregation, etc. So, as with much of the world, it's on its head right now, and the left can use the concept of states' rights righteously. So that's a major platform for resistance. And it's way past time for all governing authorities to stand up and clearly engage in the fight. All institutions. It's time for media platforms to stand up. Business, finance, academia, everybody. Everybody has to stand up with one voice and declare this administration as a rogue, fascist regime. There's strength in numbers, and we got the numbers. Because the regime is lawless, it's dangerous, it's an existential threat to the United States, to the world. Any cooperation with this regime, any funding, any partnerships, public or private, have to stop. And then take it a step further, not just non-cooperation, but active steps to bring down the regime. We have people, we have institutions, we have platforms, we got to use them. Impeachment, withholding of taxes, congressional investigations, criminal investigations, lawsuits. We should just be flooding the legal system, overwhelming the courts with lawsuits, all of them 100% legitimate. There's the whole cultural side of things. 3 cheers to all the artists who have withdrawn from the Kennedy Center. Everyone in the culture sphere, declare your opposition. Cut all ties with the regime. Support the opposition. And above all, let your cultural and artistic work reflect your values. And all the while, remembering that this is a coalition of everyone, politically, wherever you are on the spectrum, conservative, center-right, center, left, populists especially. This has to be a coalition of populists. Right-wing populists and left-wing populists have so much more in common than they care to admit. Any so-called right-wing or conservative populist, if you let Stephen Miller and his racist agenda, you're going to let him define your populism? I have way more respect for you than he does. Come on. And as happy as I am with the protesters, I mean, there's thousands of protests every day. That's fantastic. But the intensity level is lacking. We need to shut this thing down. We should be parking cars on the interstate. We should be blocking entrances to airports, to government buildings. We should take every penny out of the commercial banks, not give another dime to Amazon or any of the big corporations for that matter, especially the streaming services. There's the 5 phone calls strategy. I'll recommend, as I often do, Christopher Armitage. 5 phone calls can stop American fascism. I know we're busy. I know we have lives. I know we have jobs. But hell, 50 million Americans are retired. You have time. We can all do something. None of us can do everything, but we can all do something. And I need to talk some here about elections because, well, the main point I want to make is we cannot rely on them. It's not enough. It won't do the job. But when we win this war against American fascism, I mean, we want to come out the other end with elections still part of the system, whatever that system looks like, I don't know. As much as I call for real revolution, for direct action, civil disobedience, we don't want to burn down the village in order to save it. So we can't totally ignore the election process, not at all. But it cannot be our only focus, or even our first focus. But that doesn't mean we turn our back on the midterms. No, they're still important. They're still part of the picture. But we can't put all of our eggs in that basket. And now we've got this goddamn SAVE Act, which you and I have talked about. The Orange Meat Puppet is calling it the Save America Act. He's pushing his party so hard. He's made it his absolute number one priority. We talked at length, you and I, about the SAVE Act and about his potential presidential executive order, which he hasn't signed yet, but will basically echo the SAVE Act. Now, his people are not stupid. They know that an act of Congress carries more weight. And so they're going to do everything they can to disenfranchise as many voters as they possibly can. This proof of citizenship that's going to automatically make over 100 million American voters jump through hoops. And many of them will not succeed. And once more, they say it out loud. He said earlier this week to a gathering of Republicans, you have to pass the SAVE Act in order to win the midterms. They don't even hide their crimes anymore. And as always, if the Democrats just refuse to follow their voters, if they insist on being the corporate donor party they've become, then we're just going to have to cut them loose. But if they want to transform, if they want to join the right side of history, if they want to jump in front of a parade that's already begun and pretend they're leading it, we welcome them. Because we need every single stone in the soup. We need people acting in their personal lives. We need people out in the streets. And we need people in established institutions. It takes all of us. The regime is stumbling. It may be dying. And at the same time, it is every bit and even more dangerous than ever. So let's all hang in together. Let's do the work. All right. This and all episodes can be heard at the website charlesburcell.com or on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks to our flagship terrestrial station, River West Radio in Milwaukee. Find us on Blue Sky and Substack. Thanks to Peter Donalds, who wrote and performed our theme song. Thanks for listening. I love you. I'll see you out there.